Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 13th episode of Odds and Ends. And we've got Peter Wildeford, 13, unlucky for some, but not for Peter Wildeford, because he is the ACX 2025 Scott Alexander, their prediction contest. He is the top predictor, and you might think, it's kind of random, but, and Peter, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's 20th, 12th, 12th, 1st. Is that
That's
right,
right,
for the last 4 years? Which is, if Peter is just lucky, he's exceedingly lucky. I think, in fact, he is a very skilled forecaster. So today we are going to talk about how Peter came up with his 2025 forecasts. We're going to look maybe at what happened. We're going to get to see my worst forecasts. And then we're going to talk about 2026. There's like a similar competition and forecasts for those. And then we're going to talk about a set of AI forecasts. There's like a specific set that they ask. I think it's AI Digest. I think that's actually wrong. I think it's some group do them. We'll get to that then. But anyway, thank you so much for coming on, Peter.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to discussing some forecasts.
And I guess in your other life, you do AI policy. That's right, isn't it?
That's right, yeah.
And occasionally you're on the Daily Show.
Yeah, I was on The Daily Show. I was also on Good Morning America, but I don't think any of your listeners saw that because
I don't know, probably lots of
age 50 plus.
If you saw it, please write it in the comments. Okay, so Peter, I guess you like what forecast should we talk about from 2025?
Okay, so I did worse than the community on 7 questions and better than the community on 23 questions, and then 2 of them were a tie. So happy to get into, I can tell you my 2 worst questions or my best questions or anything that you would want to talk about.
I think up to you. I think that order sounds fine.
Cool. Well, I think that my worst question was not seeing the fact that there would be such a big Israel-Iran conflict in 2025. The community had put that at 10%, so the community also thought it was unlikely, but I had put it at 5%. Kind of thinking that, like, if you look to kind of the past history of Israel-Iran conflicts, like they kind of rarely boiled up to be kind of at that level. But then this past year saw tremendous changes in the geopolitics of Iran with kind of the complete decapitation of Iran's like proxy terrorist network and significant degradation to Iran itself, culminating now in what might be some of the biggest protests happening. And also there was like a direct U.S. Missile strike on Iran. So big things in Iran happened. So that's just kind of a proof that, unlikely events happen sometimes. And
do you have any sense of a thing you could have done to have predicted that better without just everything else being worse? I mean, I think that's actually like pretty good practice to be like, most things don't happen most of the time.
I think it's difficult. I think maybe some of the time I get like some edge, like on kind of, especially on like a larger number of questions, by just thinking that things that don't happen are just like slightly more likely not to happen, if that makes sense. And I think generally on Metaculus, there's sort of like a bias towards thinking that things will happen, especially when a question is just posed to you. And you're like kind of primed to think like, that's plausible. Like, why else would somebody be posing this question to me? And so that kind of gives like a little bit of a positivity bias. But I think like generally speaking, most things don't happen. Yeah.
So like, it's not clear that we see some like really clear, obviously you can just always be more right. You could have like dug into it more, but it's like not super clear there's like any like big lesson to take from this loss. Yeah,
I mean, maybe the lesson could just be like balancing inside view versus outside view. I think like maybe the past history of Iran-Israel conflict was just like generally less informative than I was taking it to be, because we were like clearly post October 7, just like in a kind of different realm of like what conflicts might be possible. So it would have indicated higher variance, I suppose, that I was maybe giving it credit for.
Often, sometimes we talk about like Laplace's rule of succession, like you've had like some blocks of time. And I guess sometimes this can effectively mean there's been like fewer blocks of previous time than you think, because you might count all the blocks of time before October 7th as like less relevant or something. Okay. What was the next question you did exceedingly poorly on?
Yeah, okay. Focusing on my worst parts. So
in fact, we can jump between them. Okay, let's do one that you did really well. That's yeah.
Okay, yeah. I want to highlight. Highlight. I think so. The one question I did the best on was just, will real housing prices in the U.S. increase more in 2025 compared to 2024? And the community put this as like a 50-50 proposition. They said it was 55%. I said it was 5%. So that was like, holy crap. Like, wow. I really didn't think this would happen. And the community thought like, yeah, like could go either way. So that's like an extremely different deviation. Yes, that was like an incredibly risky prediction of mine. Ended up kind of probably gambling the whole success of the set based on how I did on that one question. I think it's important context to remember that when you're making these predictions, you don't have access to the community prediction at all. So you're predicting kind of blind. Like, so it's not like I knew ahead of time that the community was 50-50 and I was going off my skis way in the negative direction. But that's just kind of how it turned out to be. And and I don't feel like I had like tremendous insight into housing prices or how that worked. I think that I had just like tried to so the question kind of came with a data set, the Zillow Home Value Index, and then when I was like looking at the data set and trying to draw the numbers compared to expected inflation, it was just like difficult to get the numbers to match. And so that I ended up maybe making like a too aggressive prediction, but it ended up paying off.
So in some ways you might think that you actually went too aggressive there, that you should have gone sort of 10%. That would have been like still a pretty successful question to you.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like in a couple questions I did just end up with fairly aggressive predictions. Aggressive meaning like really close to 99% or 1%. And I think in the like 1,000 deaths that did not pay off, but in this housing version it definitely did.
I mean, you have a good track record. It seems like you're like not terribly calibrated here, right? That actually.
Yeah, I think the calibration in the long run ends up being pretty good.
And I think you are someone who's willing to take a punt, both in this, in like, I think you do some political betting, I don't know. I think like when we talk, you're often like, oh, like I think there's like quite a good edge here. Which is, I think, a feature of you.
Thanks. Yeah, I think that's true. Then it's a bit ironic that my second worst question was about the U.S. employment rate. The question was just, will the U.S. unemployment rate in November 2025 be below the rate in November 2024? Basically, would unemployment go down? I said 65.
And anybody watching, I don't know, I don't think the visuals could be great for but anybody's watching on YouTube, these are mine. So if you're like, wait, Peter didn't do great on this question, that's because these are my forecasts. You can see we're not going to talk deeply about my forecasts unless they're funny. But I figure I might as well just show you the actual information we have. So you just have to imagine Peter's on the screen. So it's okay. So this is your second worst, and you thought it might, therefore, you're of course quite likely to.
I guess for whatever reason, yes, the community put 40%. I put 65%. For whatever reason, I thought unemployment would go down over 2025. I honestly think I might have just like literally had like a brain fritz there, where maybe I like misread the direction of the question or something. And like maybe I also meant to put in 40% or so. Because I definitely don't recall thinking unemployment would go down over 2025. Sometimes I just misread the question.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. Because I was at like, I was at 33%. But then That's funny to me because I
how are you thinking about it?
Yeah, why was I thinking that? I probably just wasn't that bullish on Trump. I think this was like my that would have been my one sec. Where was this? In 2025. So okay, or just so then I was okay. So I guess I was just thinking the last time Biden wasn't going great. I guess like had it been going really
well? I mean,
well?
I thought so. I mean, I think it's important to think about unemployment and inflation differently. I think inflation was very high, especially coming out of COVID, and then the rate, so inflation itself is a rate of change in prices. And then you might think of differences in inflation, which is like a rate of change. So like, yeah, second derivative there, but like the rate of inflation was coming down, but inflation was still high. But I think the entire time unemployment was still quite good. And I think generally speaking, there's like a bit of a trade-off between inflation and employment, and actions that the Federal Reserve take to combat inflation usually end up raising employment. So you would think that, like, generally speaking, as inflation comes down, the rate of inflation comes down, the rate of unemployment would increase. And I don't think this has really much to do with Biden or Trump or how good their economic policies are.
I can't model how I got this question. So people should ignore. I shouldn't have tried to guess. Okay, what was your second best?
Second best is, will Google, Meta, Amazon, Tesla, or X accept crypto as payment? The community put 60%. I put 25%. It did not happen. I think I don't think Google, Meta, or Amazon were ever going to do it. It was really just this is really more of an Elon question.
And I think he had talked about it.
Yeah. And Tesla even had done it at one point. I think X was maybe the most likely to accept crypto as payment.
And did you have a sense of why you thought 25%?
Yeah, I just thought that crypto was actually pretty hard for an established company to take as payment. I think another thing is like X was trying to build out maybe a payment network, but I was like skeptical that would actually end up getting delivered. And I feel like generally Elon Musk, a lot of things to like about him, a lot of things to hate about him. But one thing that's clear is just like, I feel like he always overpromises and underdelivers. I think that crypto, I guess obviously the landscape has changed a lot over the past year, but crypto has always had a shaky regulatory environment. If you're operating a multi-billion-dollar company, I think it's been like difficult to take crypto. So I think there were just like a lot of barriers to crypto adoption. Whether that's good or bad, political question I'll leave for another podcast. But like, I think, just a lot of people on the internet, a lot of the forecaster community kind of overlaps heavily with the crypto community. I think there's usually a strong bias, especially on crypto questions, to like favor crypto. And I think, not financial advice, but like betting against crypto has generally been a winning move, at least on like forecasting questions like these. Also, tragedy in the crypto markets generally right now. But that's unrelated.
So that was okay. That was just sort of like a kind of base ratey, outside viewy sort of like, this is more difficult than it seems. And I guess something about Musk, he sometimes doesn't deliver, and even when he does deliver, he often delivers a chunk of time after he said he was going to.
So combining Elon Musk and crypto into the same question kind of makes for the ultimate meme question, and I think that's usually when people's forecaster brains leave their heads the most.
Right. Next worst.
Okay, next worst. So I feel like those two worst questions I highlighted were by far my worst.
Or I guess like another interesting one. You can have other ones. It doesn't have to necessarily be your exact worst, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to do all of these. I think we maybe try and do all of the ones for this year. I think that might be like more fun, but like these are only the ones which are notable.
Well, I mean, I'll keep going as long as you want to keep going. But like, I think at this point, luckily, so I had those two ones that I think were pretty bad, but now it kind of just gets to like smaller stuff. So like my third worst is about if there would be any rationalist, effective altruist, or AI safety researcher to go on the Joe Rogan Experience before 2026. Yeah. And I put 45%. The community put 56%. I think, obviously hindsight's 2020. But I feel like I should have been more bullish that this would be something people would do, that this would be something that would happen. I figured it's like, well, first of all, 45% is like not at all like, it's a proposition that like, this is like pretty close to 50-50, right? Like could happen, could not. Joe Rogan's a popular podcast. He only has so many episodes, like it's hard to book him on. But like at the same time, AI safety researchers have been on Joe Rogan before. I think it was definitely like a top priority for them for a decent number of them over the past year. And so obviously they were like working hard on it. Maybe I should have given them a little bit more credit. But I think that goes a little bit to like, how well I did is just like kind of at this point, the parts where I'm worse than the community are just kind of like really toss up grind set questions. And I have far more impressive wins than impressive losses. And ultimately that's why I'm first place.
Maybe let's just like focus on the wins now then.
Yeah, I like that. So another question I would point to is just, will there be at least twice as many deportations by ICE in FY25 compared to FY24? And the community said 40%, but I put 5%. And I think I'm pretty proud of this question in particular.
If we're tracking me, I think I get pretty ruined on this question. Yeah, I think I put 60%.
So I feel like this is a great example of where data and vibes differ. So like the last year, so basically we're comparing Biden's last year, like how many deportations did he do? And we're comparing Trump's first year. And obviously the memes were that Trump would like aggressively deport anyone and everyone. And certainly if you've been like watching the news over the years, you've certainly heard a lot about this because they've certainly been making a lot of news, doing a lot of aggressive interior deportations. But I think if you kind of look at kind of how long it takes to ramp up a deportation apparatus, it just takes more than a year. I think like if you look at Obama versus Trump first term, there was like a similar effect where like it just takes some time to like ramp up your deportation apparatus. And so I think like basically kind of like looking at year by year deportation data, it just seemed incredibly difficult for Trump to ramp up that fast. And so I just thought I thought obviously like over the total of his term, he would do more deportations than Biden. But Biden was doing fairly aggressive deportations by the end of his term, even though he was famous for being like an open borders Biden guy. And then Trump was, still taking time to ramp up. I think also another factor that's kind of important to keep in mind is also just like how many people are coming over the border in order to be deported in the first place. Like I think the biggest effect Trump has had on illegal immigration in the United States is just like a deterrence effect where people don't even come in the first place. And so I think, if you're, I think that unfortunately lowers your deportation numbers, even if it lowers illegal immigration as a whole. I think, I guess like you always hear about like Minnesota or other ICE actions. But like most deportations occur just directly on the border where somebody like hops the fence, so to speak, gets immediately captured and then immediately returned.
Here you just like actually had a much better model of the situation than me and indeed the community.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm pretty proud of that.
Yeah, I think they're very solid. And I think it's very interesting also that if you ask purely on vibes, this question was vibes, yes, but it just turned out to be no. Like a double is just a lot. And in fact, the numbers haven't necessarily even increased that much.
Yeah, questions where the vibes differ from the data, I think, are my favorite kinds of questions. Yeah, good opportunity there.
Yeah, okay. Let's keep going.
So another question, I'm just kind of going in order of biggest win down. So the next one would be whether a new war or substantial escalation of a previous war kills at least 5,000 people in 2025. So this is kind of like the ironic inverse of the Iran-Israel question. I guess if that had gone over 5,000 deaths, I think I would have lost on this question as well. But the community was 50-50. I was at 25%. And then this did not end up happening. I spent a fair amount of time just trying to look at the history of war and try to figure out so obviously there's current conflicts like Russia, Ukraine, and such. And I was trying to think of what conflicts could possibly qualify. And then just kind of where in the world did I kind of see new conflicts arising. And I think there was some stuff in Pakistan and obviously some stuff in Sudan. But there didn't seem to be any major sources. 5,000 deaths is actually kind of a pretty high bar. If you look at the history of conflict, it doesn't really, for basically the vast majority of wars that have occurred over the past 2 decades, the death toll ends up being below 5,000. So you can get some new conflicts. And in fact, we did see a new conflict, but it doesn't rise to that higher bar. 5,000 deaths is kind of a lot. So I just thought this was fairly unlikely.
I think the important thing to make here is that you do get lucky in some sense, but you get lucky on the realm of individual questions. And the fact is that over 4 years, your luck has led you to be or the luck burns out and then you're just ahead. I think this is something to take, is that there are going to be the Iran question could have gone either way, but it just turns out on aggregate, that's not luck.
So obviously I'm I'm fantastically happy to be first place this time. I do think that there is a notable luck component to whether you're first place or 12th place. I mean, there are only 32 questions. If one question just goes the wrong way, your ranking can change pretty fast. Even if you're right on the merits, you just kind of the world turned out oh, it was that 5% case where you thought this wouldn't happen. It ends up in that case. Your ranking can kind of slip. So I guess the way the world works is I get so much respect for being first, and if I was second, people would be less impressed, much less impressed. But I think the way that forecasting, I think if you were really meticulously understanding forecasting, the far more impressive thing is not being first once, but being like you said, consistent year over year, 20th, 12th, first. I think that kind of shows, consistent year over year performance. That's not just luck.
And in some sense, it's not the individual questions. It's 20 percentage points here, 10 percentage points there. It's just many of these little things. And then, well, actually, in your case, I think there's a number of questions where you're really quite a big difference from the community.
Yeah.
And in some sense, if the world had turned out differently, you could easily have got the Iran question. You could easily have got a big points on that, for instance.
Yeah, exactly.
We can do another.
Okay, another question, is just Argentina's year-over-year inflation. Will it be below 30% for 2025? I thought 40%. The community thought 56%. This was do you believe in Milei? Do you believe in miracles? I think ultimately it was if you look at the history of Argentina's inflation, sustaining what Milei did was a very difficult thing to do. I think he ended up getting kind of close, but didn't end up managing to push it below this arbitrary threshold. I think that was also kind of what the data was suggesting. I'm not I didn't have any super fantastic macroeconomic models, but just seemed kind of a difficult thing to do. I thought Milei had a strong shot, which is why I gave it 40%. But I think too many people were kind of just boosting him without kind of recognizing the difficulty of the task ahead.
I mean, this is a really interesting one because unlike the others, I think where the change happens quite early, here the community forecast keeps happening through the year. For readers. But the community forecast is at 50% December 13th, and then it plunges to 10% December 24th. So it's really based on the last thing of December, and the community thinks it's The community is at 55%, but it's basically over 50%. It's at 50% for some of June for a strange reason. It's over 50% for almost the entire year, and then just plunges.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is important to emphasize, like, it was actually really close. Like, I think in December, the year-to-date inflation, like at the beginning of December, the year-to-date inflation was 28%. So it was like still under. So it was really a question of like, what would be the inflation rate in the month of December? And the month of December pushed it up to 31.5%. So it did just barely cross 30% in the final month.
So this isn't a question entirely like the crypto question before, for instance. That was and I think the immigration question, the vibes and the sort of reality, the mechanistic reality were quite decoupled. Whereas this question, it feels more like the vibes weren't entirely decoupled. Millet did like do a pretty good job, I think, but you just turned out to be a better judge than the community of how difficult the task was. This seems less like a sort of like 5x, 10x, but you just were like, this is just a bit. This is too difficult for me. And in fact, your forecaster, you sort of 40%. You're like, it's possible, but it seems. And it turned out that was the difference.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. I think that's right. I mean, I think like, yeah, it was out. So, I mean, I think this is another question where it might have been right. Like, seems like the true answer was actually pretty close to 50-50. The community was a bit north of 50. I was a bit south of 50. Feels like it was just literally predicting heads versus tails. And I just kind of got that right. I think if I ended up being wrong, my guess is that I still greatly outperformed the community just by like a little bit less. I don't know if that would have changed my first place, but I still would have ranked pretty highly.
This is going to be the moral of the story. It's just that like, if you can eke out enough small gains, then that's how you may not have won, or you may have won, or you may not have won. But there's really, I think, no chance I was going to win. Or it took a really quite a strange world, like quite a specifically strange.
What was your rank? What did your rank end up being?
I came 388th. I don't know. It's kind of it's very tempting to look at these and be like, oh, I was unlucky. No, it's like, but on aggregate, I think I was just a poor judgment. I think probably you spend longer on these than I do. Though I tried to spend quite a lot longer this year, so we'll see how that goes.
I probably should have said that I spent, I think, 10 hours total forecasting for ACX 2025. And I did it all in one giant marathon session, just like started in the morning of the last day and ended at the end of the day. And yeah, I actually recorded all of it, which is really cool. I always thought I could like edit that down into like a neat video, but I've unfortunately lost the recordings. I don't know how that ended up happening. And
so it might exist somewhere, but yeah,
it's possible. Yeah, I've looked fairly thoroughly. I can't find it. But yes, this podcast will end up being the definitive record.
An odds and ends exclusive.
Odds and ends exclusive.
I think maybe we should jump to 2026.
Yeah, let's do it. So the sad thing about ACX 2026 is I missed the deadline, so I won't be competing. I'm going out while I'm on top. That was not intentional. It was an accident. But that at least will give someone else a chance to be first place this time. But maybe the cool thing for you for this podcast is I've never actually really even looked at the questions. And so I would be seeing them for the first time. I
guess we can just sort of rapidly go through the questions. I'll talk about questions that I think there's like a big chance of it being different. But also, I'll ask you for some kind of gut thing, and then maybe if that's different than the community or whatever, then we can look into it in more detail. Or, yeah, plausibly also you can get up on your screen and decide. So, do you have any sense of when if an AI model will reach the 3-hour time horizon with 80% reliability this year?
Yeah, let's think about it. So, if we go to meter.org, they have a very nicely new designed website. You can see the reliability scores. You can click on 80% success. You can see GPT 5.2 is currently at 55 minutes on the 80% reliability. I guess 3 hours is 180 minutes, right? So you divide that by 55. So it's going to require, a 3.2x increase. I guess like, what does it need to how many doublings does it need to do? You have to do like log math, right? But like it seems definitely less than 2 doublings. I would expect like 3 doublings over the next year if models are doubling every 4 months. So I feel like this has to be like fairly high. I take note that the community is at 55%. That feels like not bullish enough on AI progress.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So yeah, what are you at? You're an AI skeptic.
I was at 40%. Yeah. So I guess we're gonna.
Yeah. Why not? You don't believe in our AI models?
I think I just probably like eyeballed a graph. We will see.
Yeah. So I guess I would expect at like the 80% reliability mark that we probably would get to somewhere between there's like some chance, obviously there's like a notable chance, but like I would expect like 4 hour or so by the end of the year. I could probably even just like do mathematics to tell you the chance of it being more than 3 hours.
The year 2025 was 10 minutes, so that's doubled 2 and a bit times.
Yeah, I would expect there to be between 2 to 4 doublings over the next year. And I mean, even 2 doublings is enough to get you across the line, right?
Yep. Okay. Will Keir Starmer cease to be PM?
Oh yeah, I feel like this is a question for you. I'd be really curious how you're thinking about it.
So this feels like the question at which I went out on a limb. I think I felt like I was going out on a limb a bit at the time, and I subsequently saw the community forecast. I was like, oof. So the community was at like 30-something%, and I've been at 60% since when I did the forecast. Like, so for viewers, I was a bit before, but then I spent a day forecasting in mid-January. My rationale here is like predominantly there are prediction markets. There are British betting companies. Britain has like quite a big history of like betting on political events, and they were like around 60%. I've tried betting on British politics before. I generally lose money. So like for me, there's like a strong anchoring effect that like I should think what I know more than the British like betting to decide whether I'm going to say something else. And this did feel high to me, honestly, because I guess Starmer won a huge election, but on the other hand, he is just tremendously unpopular. If you look at, I generally do this through the Wikipedia vote tracker. This is catastrophic. Like Labour is beneath 20% of the vote, and
that is insane.
They have been, the governing party has been like the third most like voted, like they've been third. This is like really terrible. I mean, in fairness, the Tory party has also had, I think maybe some of the worst polling ever for the Tory party. There's like those kinds of things. The Tory party has been around for like hundreds of years, or maybe like 100 and something years. Like people could correct me, but this is really catastrophic for Labour.
Yeah, that's insane.
And Keir Starmer is tremendously unpopular. And so I think at the time I was just like, it seems unlikely to me that after, such a big election, he is going to get moved out. But like, he is tremendously unpopular. We've got the local elections in Britain, and it seems like there's going to be a complete bloodbath. Like they're just going to get completely trounced in the local elections. And this is going to be very bad. And it's going to give like a good opportunity for people to be like, Starmer's got to go.
So you're British. I'm not. I really don't actually know much about how this works. Like, is your theory that he gets ousted because the Labour Party is like, we want him gone, or would he actually like lose a vote of no confidence? Or
I haven't given this loads of thought, but my sense would be that he gets removed by the Labour Party, that they like internally remove him. They have some kind of internal process. I don't think he's gonna. I don't think there's gonna be an election.
So like seats don't change unless there's an election. So like he can be like tremendously unpopular, but if there's not an election, it doesn't really matter.
But the Labour Party can remove him as leader.
Yeah, but I guess so. My contrary to your opinion take would be something like it's all fun and games until it's like election, and that if you're gonna dump him, I would just dump him like 6 months or so before the actual election, as opposed to now. Yeah,
I think that probably is my like internal view. Again, I just don't have much confidence of my ability to like outcompete the betting markets, because there's a lot of like insider information that like floats around.
What do the betting markets say?
They're basically at like 60%, I think, and they have been for like a long time. Maybe they're a little bit higher now.
Well, I mean, I guess it's always a classic interesting. It's always super interesting when meticulous and betting markets diverge, and I feel like it's a fabulously unstudied question. Like, who should you back in that case? Because theoretically, that means there's an arbitrage opportunity, right? It's not like you can take meticulous points to the bank, but you can either win meticulous points or win money. You would think that like betting markets are way more likely to be right because there's like much larger consequences to being wrong. You like lose money. But like I think like generally speaking, I don't think that's always been the case. I definitely can remember many times when meticulous has been more accurate than the betting markets. But I've not studied this systematically.
So this is markets. This isn't the biggest order book, but it's just got like nice graphs, and I expect, given that there would be arbitraging, I expect to be pretty accurate. Currently, this has got a 70% chance that Starmer goes this year. It's important to note that in the last week, Peter Mandelson, who was involved, he was sent as the UK's ambassador to the US by the current Prime Minister, and he was involved in like political strategy in the election, has been found to have been leaking, I guess I should say allegedly, because British libel law is crazy. The emails in the Epstein log allege basically that the emails show him telling Epstein about details of bailouts, for instance, ahead of them happening. So it's just like absolutely, completely unacceptable behavior, and just a very close relationship. And I think sort of this is being kind of a mix of huge financial crime and like kind of pedophilia type stuff is being like turned together, and it cuts through and the public hates it. And so I think this is like part of a reason for it is sort of like an even worse than was originally there.
That's crazy. Well, what a fascinating question. So it sounds like you and the betting markets are on one end of thinking this is pretty likely to happen. Meticulous thinks it's quite unlikely for reasons that I don't believe have been articulated. And then I guess I also have an intuition that it's unlikely. I guess if you...
Yeah, so you can see someone here, so like here's a 28% person 3 weeks ago. He has low approval ratings, blah, 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 but their positive factors are structurally hard to unseat midterm. I actually don't think it's like super true. Like in the last, it's harder for Labour to unseat than the Tories, but like UK prime ministers get unseated midterm a lot in the last 15 years. Labour has a huge Commons majority, that's true. No formal leadership challenge triggered yet. I think if there was a formal leadership challenge, they would only do it if they thought they could win. So I don't think that's like much evidence. Starmer's fighting back, making case to the party. Again, I don't think there's tons of evidence. I think probably like key factors against. I would actually think your thing is like more evidence that you might just want to wait until all the bad news has come before you install somebody before the next election. I think like it will be an interesting decision to install them if it seems likely this year, because they're going to at least wait until after the local elections. But then,
I mean, I guess if I was them, I would just like be like, yeah, polls say we're unpopular, but there's still many years until the election. You never know what could happen. Like news can change really quickly. Public sentiment can change quickly. Like I would just gamble on that. And then if it's like election season and I'm still tremendously unpopular, I think it's just like, if you're going to pull the flip, I would pull the flip as late as possible. Otherwise, you could like replace Keir Starmer for like, I don't know, like, Joe Next Guy. But then Joe Next Guy would also become unpopular over 2 years. And are you going to replace Joe Next Guy with like Frederick III or like...
I don't have a problem. I don't have any problem saying that like I would very happily replace the median MP with you. I think like they're not necessarily thinking great on this issue. I think another part of this, I don't know, I don't want to weigh this too much, I think, but as some colour, Corbyn, an extremely left-wing MP, came in, and that caused a lot of the sort of like longer-term sort of like middle Labour MPs to leave Parliament. And Labour had this like big defeat in 2019. And so then Starmer tried pretty hard to get a lot of more sort of they're centre left, but they're much more right wing than the others, to kind of like bolster his coalition. But I think there's a lot of dissatisfaction internally. That would be, I'm not super great at this, but that would be my read of this, is that like a lot of Labour and backbench MPs are not happy with sort of, there's been a big swing to the sort of anti-trans side in terms of policy. They're not that happy with sort of a sort of penny pinchingness. Maybe I think a big chunk of them perhaps would like to do some sort of like big billionaire tax, more money to the NHS kind of stuff. And I think that would be a bad idea. But I think it might give some more reason to be like, Starmer is not popular internally with his party either. I think like a big chunk of them would be happy for him to go. In fact, my read is basically it's not clear who would be his clear successor. So you've got Angela Rayner, you've got Wes Streeting, who are the sort of two front runners. If it was clear which one of them kind of wanted to go for it and the other one didn't, then I think you might see a lot of power building and then calling an internal like race against him.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas while both of them think, well, hey, it might be the other one, each of them has, I think, incentives to sort of wait and let that kick along.
That makes sense. Well, this will be a fantastic question to watch. What's next?
Will TikTok be banned or sold? We're not going to do anything, but I'm just going to say, I thought TikTok would be sold, and it was, because the sale was like absolutely very planned.
Good job,
so
yeah.
I managed to beat the community, I think, by a chunk there, by reading the news and things. I mean, obviously Trump could have kicked that can down, I guess, but he had like quite a lot. But like the sale was, I think, like seemed to me the sale was like very much like in process and planned, and that did indeed happen.
Yeah, nice.
Right. So next one, bilateral ceasefire in Russian-Ukraine conflict.
Yeah, there's never a ceasefire.
Yeah, there's usually not a ceasefire, and indeed, I think Trump is like pushing for a ceasefire, but there aren't like really structural reasons for a ceasefire. Ukraine still seems willing to fight. Russia still seems willing to fight. Like, I think until one of them is like really starting to lose very badly, then this may just keep going.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that is really just the Trump factor. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like if you extrapolate the 2025 across like the end of time, there would just never ever be a ceasefire. So obviously, you need some like fundamental change in events, either like Trump like personally bombs Russia or Russia does just like defeat Ukraine. Neither of those seem particularly likely. I think even if the US withdraws support from Ukraine, I think Europe could substitute. I think that's already kind of started happening to some extent. I think, territory is just so much easier to defend than it is to attack. Maybe you get like some new breakthrough in warfare, but like, I don't know. I just don't think, I think both sides are just like pretty, I guess obviously they would like prefer, I think just both sides are happy with the status quo, I guess.
More close to the beginning of like the real speed up on drones, I was like, maybe we have this like higher variance, a bit like we talked about with the October 7th thing. But then we've had like this increase in drones for a while now, and now it just seems like this is the new normal, and they too are not causing huge, enormous breakthroughs. I also think like if Trump were really willing to hold sort of either side, then I think maybe he could do something. Like he sort of did this thing with Ukraine where he sort of said, hey, look, if you're not willing to come to a deal, I'm going to cut off weapons, and he started to do that, and I think that like did bring Ukraine to the table. But he didn't really do the same thing with Russia. Russia keeps kind of spilling him saying, I know, and even the things that Russia says it's going to do, I'm not sure that it will even agree to those. Like even if it got its exact deal, I think it would still want a few more things before it was actually happy to take the deal.
Yeah.
And the fact that Trump doesn't seem able, to me, to hold. I mean, I think he did sort of successfully kind of like get some concessions out of Ukraine, but I think he didn't ever he hasn't seemed to be getting them out of Russia. And again, I think the longer this goes on, Germany has now passed this like new funding bill. I'm never sort of great on details, but it does seem to me that like that Europe is like starting to step into the gap, and that will make it harder for Trump to push Ukraine, which I think they're sort of open to some notions, but like only slightly. Will Artemis complete its mission successfully? This is the big non-reusable rocket. Yeah,
classic NASA. Let's go to the moon. Yeah, you British people wish you could go to the moon.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Though, Britain is actually good for, what, solar stationary orbits, GEO, I think. So really what I hope for Britain is to go and stay above the Earth.
Like, I understand NASA always overruns deadlines, but, like, all you literally have to do is, like, launch a rocket, go on a 10-day voyage, and come back. Like, yeah, how could that be? Like, they already have the rocket on the little pad thing. They have a whole year.
It's planned for quite soon, isn't it, I think?
I mean, like, how is this not at, like, 90% or something? You just have to, like, launch the rocket, go on a little, like, flip-de-flu, come back.
Yeah, it's a good question. Why is it not
don't blow up?
Hardware issues during final testing?
Yeah, I mean, so this rocket launch was originally planned for, like, 2019. So obviously there's been, like, comical delays here. But, like, I don't think it's... how often does a rocket launch get to the pad and then still get scrapped for a year?
Seems like a good one. That would be your research approach if you were going to do it.
Yeah, okay, so my free alpha is jam the slider all the way to the right. I mean, maybe not literally all the way to the right, but, like, I'm going to say 90% on this one. Well,
okay,
yeah.
I'll jack it up an extra one. Just for you.
Oh, were you at 80%, 87% already?
Yeah.
So you had, cool. Yeah.
I did think, it did seem likely to me. What will be the highest score achieved on ARC AGI 2?
Oh, jeez.
I mean, I think I said this. I have like a bot researcher and it comes out with things.
Oh, no.
I can't remember why I thought this.
How have your bot researchers been doing? Are humans just cooked now?
The ways in which my bots are bad is generally like coding based, not forecasting based. I think they're like pretty solid forecasters.
Huh. I thought they were pretty solid coders too. Have you tried Cloud Code?
Sure. The Metaculus tournament is just a lot about it being like bang on every question, like it actually doing it. And I just had like ones where like one of the searches broke, and so it was only forecasting from its knowledge, not from the internet.
Oh, that sucks.
That lost me a lot of points.
I haven't really thought much about ARC AGI 2 data. I mean, I guess I would recommend basic mathematics again, like look at the trend line. What does the trend line suggest for the end of 2026? And then predict that number. I haven't actually done that, though.
Great. Well, I think we're fine with not doing that. Government shutdown.
Oh, yeah. So much has happened since over the past bit.
Yeah.
Oh, not just government shutdown, how many days? Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. So my actual forecast was really like a lot on 0.
Yeah, that sounds pretty reasonable.
I actually don't know the like shutdown news from today. The ones I'm following really closely are the ones in the tournament. There's a tournament where Metaculus are going against me, viewers who don't know that. And in that tournament, I'm really trying to stay on top of them. But this, not so much. So I don't actually know where the current shutdown discussion is at. But I think probably I could have done a lot better on this question by looking at when the funding timed out and just trying to be like, it's pretty soon. They're not really on good terms. The Democrats are really angry. They might be able to kind of like push for like a not funding ICE type thing. Like I think the country would probably be behind them in that. And so like I think probably this was like a bad forecast for me just to go for the base rate rather than think too much.
Base rate's definitely not a good time for base rate this year. Well, yeah, I mean, I guess firstly would just be carefully reading the resolution criteria to see what counts as a shutdown, especially when there can be partial shutdowns. Like how is a partial shutdown treated?
For any portion of the day. Shutdown furlough status for any portion of the day.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't about portion of the day. This is about portion of the government. Like if just DHS was shut down, does that count? It seems like that would be helpful to clarify. So, I mean, I guess currently I would be expecting if there is a shutdown, it would be like a partial shutdown. Some parts of the government are already funded for the entire fiscal year. So, like, my understanding is that it's impossible for there to be a full government shutdown this year, but it is definitely possible for there to be a partial government shutdown this year.
Well, I'm going to ask that question. Look at this. See, this is the kind of internal knowledge that is useful.
Happy to help.
It's kind of unclear to me what the norm should be there. I guess like if we knew that information at the beginning of the year, then it shouldn't count those. But I guess when I was researching, I didn't get that distinction. So the current funding is only through January 30th, according to another partial shutdown. So it does include the partial shutdown. So I guess I'm curious. It's got a list in the data of federal government shutdowns, but I'm curious if any of these are partial shutdowns or if they're full shutdowns.
Well, I mean, the big thing right now is the dispute over DHS funding, which contains ICE, which
Yeah.
I know. Yeah, I know we're not keeping this. We're trying to keep politics out of this podcast, but it's certainly a political question for sure.
Well, I think ICE's behavior in the last kind of month has been exceedingly poor. For what it's worth, I probably am pretty happy keeping politics out, or I think it's just a better frame is just to be what's going to happen. So yeah, but I do think this has been very unpopular and has caused it seems to be unpopular even amongst Republicans, or just notably less popular than it could have been. Republicans generally really like Trump's immigration policy, so that they don't like this is a big deal. So yeah, it does seem like the sort of thing where Democrats can really push back. Will the EU require mandatory age verification of AI or social media before 2027?
Yeah, I mean, this is a battle between obviously the EU wants to regulate anything and everything, but obviously it takes 20 years to pass a law. So the unstoppable force meets an unmovable object. What does that mean for our predictions?
For any viewers just tuning in, you may not realize, but Peter is an American.
I mean, yeah, my guess is that they will want it to happen, but it won't happen because it takes a long time for a law.
Okay. Will China attack or blockade Taiwan?
Ooh, that is a fun question. And by fun, I mean, it's absolutely speaking, it's not fun at all. It's really fun to forecast, but if it does happen, it will be a really crappy world.
I guess you're not that different from I'm at 14%, slightly below the community.
I mean, I feel also important to read the fine, what actually counts as a blockade.
Conducts military attack on any land or territory held by Taiwan, or military force or Coast Guard, most commercial ship traffic to at least one port administered by Taiwan ceases for 5 days.
If this happens this year, I think it will be certainly number 3 and not 1 or 2.
Yeah.
I will also say I feel just shutting down just a single port or something, could be a cool way to show that China means business.
So a thing I didn't check, and therefore Kinmen at least is just exceedingly close to China. So there's 2 little islands that are controlled by Taiwan that are very, very close to the Chinese coast. And that does seem like a big question, because if China wanted to, it could absolutely trivially take those.
Yeah. So, I mean, I would guess that I wouldn't expect something so dramatic as an invasion. But I feel a port blockade could happen. Yeah, so we'd have to think a little bit more about this one.
Okay. SpaceX successfully refuel a Starship in orbit.
Ooh, that's super cool. I really don't know anything about it. Sounds awesome, though.
Well, this maybe feels like a question where Nathan's been overawed by the vibes. Scheduled to take place mid-2026 and is mission critical for the Artemis program. Elon has said that he's dialing back on Mars to focus, I guess, maybe also on his launching things into space for data centers.
Feels like a really technical question, right? How hard is this to do? How much progress have they made?
They've never tried it before. In fact, to my knowledge, Starship has never got into orbit. They've just done near orbital transfers, but they've never actually sent one into orbit. Yeah, I mean,
I guess a great thing to ask is, are they even trying to do this year?
Yeah, so they plan to do it for mid-2026.
Oh yeah, but I guess I think as we've discussed earlier in the podcast, Elon can make lots of plans, but he also wanted to put a Dogecoin on the moon. Just because he makes a plan doesn't mean that he actually is going to do it.
So I guess the thing to do if you were doing this forecasting this question would maybe be to see how much SpaceX tends to miss its initial deadlines by, and whether this is the first deadline or the second deadline or something. Maybe to work a bit and see I mean, I imagine this is fiendishly technically difficult.
Well, anyway, it seems like the kind of question that's hard to answer in just 3 minutes. Oh, I do feel like if you are answering this question in just 3 minutes, I do feel like my free advice, though, Nathan, that we've discussed earlier is that people always overestimate yes. And so, like, I feel like if you take any question on Metaculus, see that the community is at 36%, and choose to lower it by like 5 to 10 percentage points, you're probably more likely to be accurate, regardless of what the question is. You don't even need to read the question.
And everyone, free alpha.
Yeah.
Bitcoin price? You got any?
That's something that's also changed a lot since this question was launched. Obviously, if I could predict the price of Bitcoin, I would be doing quite well right now. So yeah, I feel like your guess is as good as mine. What do the futures markets say? I suppose that would be my prediction.
I do think this is like a notable part of forecasting is also just like knowing which real markets you can use.
Yeah.
If you know that like British betting markets tend to be more accurate than American ones.
Oh, is that true? I didn't know that. That's
on British politics.
Oh yeah. Congratulations.
Then you can just like sometimes check that, and that's very useful. AI songs on the Billboard 100.
Oh boy. I mean, are they even allowed to be on the Billboard 100? I guess that's my first question.
They did block one from it.
Yeah.
The question is whether they're going to keep blocking it, I believe.
I mean, so I guess on one hand, this is like an AI capabilities question, but on the other hand, this is a politics question. There's a fine print that says, if Metaculus assesses that AI songs have been explicitly prohibited from appearing in the Hot 100 list, the question will be annulled. Okay, so I feel like this question is just going to get annulled. And so forecasting this question is probably just a waste of time. Okay, so in the bizarro world where the Hot 100 list allows AI songs, I guess it still kind of gets into like, I feel like people are just going to hate on AI songs. I mean, okay, so here's another problem. Here's another reason why I just don't think this will happen. Is like you need like a top artist to like want to make an AI song. Like the vocal melody composed and performed by an AI. Like I don't know. I just feel like I feel like AI will be like technically capable of making great songs, but like it's just gonna be hard to chart. It's going to be like just like hope. It's like a hopelessly socio-political question. Just like how will people relate to the AI song?
So you're only forecasting in the world where actually they allow it.
Yeah, which is an interesting world, and I think it's a different world than we are in. Yeah.
So you're not going to spend, but so your considerations are AI is going to be very competent and good at making songs. People are probably going to like not find it that good to listen to. So I guess like maybe my question was like, how likely is there to be like a big meme song that everybody listens to because it's funny to listen to it?
How often do meme songs end up on the Billboard Hot 100? I guess that would be a sub question.
I decided through doing this that like what we're trying to do is like ask what things you would forecast if you had more time to do so.
Yeah. Decomposing the question is valuable.
S&P 500 close above 7,500 points. Obviously, you can look at futures.
Yeah, I guess that's what I would do.
Would you tweak it up to account for AI?
Great question. So, yeah, I guess the argument would be that, like, as the futures market is not, like, as AGI pilled as I am and doesn't understand that, like, AI will probably lead to a lot of value, if not the end of the world. So, like, maybe we're underestimating S&P 500 growth. But, like, also maybe adoption is slow. Maybe this is actually priced in, etc. Yeah. I guess, like, generally speaking, I would be, like, tempted to bump it up a little bit but I don't think I actually would end up doing that.
I think I'm like 5 percentage points higher than the community. Do you have takes on how the Supreme Court, I'm just going to scroll through some of them to see ones where I'm different. Do you have takes on the Supreme Court ruling tariffs?
Well, it's certainly been dragging their feet on it, right? I thought that they were like, I guess my understanding was that they were like moderately likely to rule against. So I feel like but like I don't know whether that's like a mixed ruling or other ruling or not.
I think that's probably tariffs unlawful, and then there's like a mixed ruling is like some of each.
Yeah, so I guess I would have to dig into like what does. So I mean, I think it's like also again like I feel like I know absolutely nothing about the actual case itself, and like sometimes there's like, oh, we're asking the court to do like 5 different things, and the court is like, we're going to do 3 of those things, and that's like a mixed ruling, I suppose. Even so, like I feel like you could like maybe substantively limit tariffs, but like still end up in a mixed ruling world. So, like,
court could find some tariffs valid, such as the trafficking drug emergency tariffs, the trade deficit emergency.
Yeah, so maybe like the question is about this International Emergency Economic Powers Act, also called IEPA, which grants the president a lot of authority. Like, does it grant him the powers to just like arbitrarily tariff any country he wants? Probably not. He needs like some plausible excuse. And like maybe drugs is like a good excuse, but like the reciprocal tariffs, not. Yeah, I guess like my vibes forecast would then like lead towards mixed ruling. What are you thinking about it?
I think I have historic. So my previous one is like quite big unlawful, was like sort of 50% unlawful. I think given that the community and I are so different, and I guess the community probably knows roughly what it's talking about, I've moved a bit towards them. So yeah, I think my research thought that they might. I guess also historically, I guess I also just looked because had been a lot of forecasting on this question last year. So I guess I also looked at what that forecast was for much of that time, and I think people generally. I think it is notable. I think the community has sort of notably moved towards the mixed ruling.
Yeah, I am getting the benefit of forecasting this on February 7 as opposed to when the questions were actually due.
Sure. Do you have takes on an OpenAI IPO?
They certainly want to do it.
Are they going to do it this year?
Yeah, this is. Yeah, what I feel like I don't know that much about it without looking into it. Do you have takes?
I'm a little bit beneath the community. I guess, again, this all happens blind, so I guess I just thought maybe, but probably not. I didn't have strong reasons for that. I think probably I would be a bit higher now because I think people like are more openly talking about it. Maybe they were at the time, I just didn't pick it up.
Yeah, so like maybe they want like IPOs are generally slow. They said they were targeting 2026 to 2027. So they're not like necessarily even just targeting this year. So like I guess that kind of makes sense. Like I think the incentives around IPOing are maybe a bit unclear. They certainly seem to have good private markets right now. Yeah. So I feel like that signs their kind of point on the like lower end. But I wouldn't go below like 30%, I don't think.
With the recent stuff about NVIDIA, perhaps that pushes up a bit if they're actually starting to struggle to get big cap. Like, I think the first AI company that goes public might just have a huge amount of consumer sentiment, people wanting to sort of get in on the AI boom.
Yeah, I feel around like 30 to 35% in that case.
Okay, I think that's like most of the questions where I think there's like, I don't know, I might just read the rest and you can decide which one of the rest you might want to, if any of them. Will they act an AI safety federal statute or executive order? That's probably one.
Oh yeah, let's talk about that. That's like related to my day job.
Will the US enact one?
So obviously you have to read the text. Like Trump already had an executive order. Like, does that count?
At least one new AI safety requirement on any private entity developing or deploying AI models.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, enacts a law or executive order. Well, executive orders can't like impose requirements. They can like ask companies nicely to do things. And then, yeah, so they also have to, a requirement has to be intended to prevent material harm from an AI safety's general capabilities or misuse potential, such as mandated risk assessments. So like if a law like, so there's like, maybe you've heard of like the Take It Down Act, which like mandates that online platforms remove like non-consensual intimate imagery and digital forgeries. Like that was passed last year. It's gonna go into effect this year. Like, does that kind of thing count? It says like a requirement only counts if they are imposed on a basis of model's general capability level.
An example of an executive order that would count is EO 14110, signed October 30, 2023, which, among other things, ordered the Secretary of Commerce to require developers of certain AI models to conduct red teaming tests to enable deployment of safe, secure, and trustworthy systems.
I don't even know if that's like a correct interpretation of EO 14110. Yeah, but I guess this feels like a fairly technical question. I think the biggest thing about EO 14110 was the imposition of reporting requirements using DPA authority. Like, yeah, I think that was like the more interesting, more meaty thing.
So you're struggling over the requirements word. Okay.
I'm struggling over like what actually counts. I think that obviously there's like, I am not expecting some sweeping AI safety bill. Like you may know, like there's like this like Holly Blumenthal like AI risk evaluation act. I like really don't think that will happen this year. But like maybe some like child safety deepfake bill passes or something, or like I'm just kind of thinking, or like maybe there's like some like smaller. I guess I'm trying to think of like ways this could like sneakily resolve yes, even if it's like actually fairly minimal.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be.
So this sort of
my path
seems
here.
to imply that would be a no. They do not include requirements about privacy.
Yeah. Okay. So I think I'd be very aggressively no, and I'm trying to think of ways I actually could be tricked by like edge cases and stuff. This is my forecaster brain.
Public health emergency of international concern.
Oh yeah, I mean that's a. Yeah, the FEAC is always the public health emergency of international concern. Always a classic question every year.
Yep.
I assume you just kind of predict the base rate, right?
Yeah, though obviously you also often have a poly market.
Yeah, I think lower is better on that question. I agree.
If I can bother you, I might ask you just for your forecast for the other thing. Then.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so this is for the AI 2026 forecast, not to be confused with AI 2027, which is a completely different thing. So you go to forecast2026.ai. I already have opinions about how I was wrong earlier.
So how does this work? So this is this year's forecast. Your forecast, the median is in like light.
The median is in like
your forecast is in
the median is in light gray. It's often hidden. If you look at the first question, the light gray arrow is hidden behind the robot.
What is the robot?
The robot is the current time, like what the current value is. Yeah, so there's the current time indicated. There's the current value indicated by the robot. There is the shaded gray, which is the median forecast, and then there's the white. Sorry, the shaded gray triangle is the median, and the white triangle is me.
So you're more or less identical to the median on mathematics, AI research, and general
And
capabilities.
then for context, I think it's important to know that we do get to see the median when making the forecast. So you might think, wow, gee, Peter, your forecasts are pretty close to the median. Like, was that a coincidence? No, it was not a coincidence. Unlike the ACX forecast for 2025, where I was forecasting without access to the median.
Yeah. So the ones you're kind of taking a punt on, the ones you're taking a big jump on, the most is the sum of their revenues. You think that's going to be moderately higher than everyone else does?
And I'm starting to think that maybe even 120 billion might have been an underestimate, and I should go.
Okay.
Yeah, it seems like there's going to be an awful lot of AI revenue this year.
Okay.
After this forecast came out and the predictions got locked, I think Anthropic did a massive revision on their revenue. So basically, my understanding is that when companies like OpenAI and Anthropic report their revenue, they're not allowed to say things like AGI is going to lead to us automating the entire economy, so our revenue is like a bajillion jillions. Instead, they have to use like normal finance, standardly accepted things where it's like, well, our revenue was like X last month, and we think it will go up by like a normal sane amount next month. And so it's only kind of like when revenue actually accrues do they get to like revise their forecasts, and they're not allowed to use like AGI brained things. But obviously, as an AGI brained person, as a forecaster, I'm totally allowed to use AGI brained things. So like I think that revenue will just be like a lot higher than they're allowed to project, like by like legal's finance brained projections.
Mm-hmm.
And this was definitely true last year. If you rewind the clock to December 2024, the sum of OpenAI, Anthropic, and XAI revenues, like you would ask the companies, like, hey, how much revenue do you think you'll produce over 2025, the entirety of 2025? And they would say, like, yeah, we think we'll do a combined 18 billion. And me, being an idiot, was like, oh, well, if the companies say 18 billion, like, who am I to, like, tell them they're wrong? I will forecast 18 billion. But the answer was 30.8 billion. And I think that's because, again, the difference between being AGI brained and being finance brained. And so this year, I'm like, oh, the companies say they'll do X, but obviously they're dumb, and I'm not dumb. And so I'm going to give a really big number. And that is the brain process of a top forecaster, baby.
So maybe then, probably the only other one I think is worth discussing, because the rest are all really, well, maybe there's two. The software optimization and remote work seem like two where you're like, or maybe let's do the meter doubling time, because you're like, that's probably like a big ticket one.
Yeah.
Do you have any take on why you're a bit different?
I don't think I already kind of regret doing this. I feel like the meter horizon doubling time is difficult. I think least of which because Meter is probably going to revise their methodology. They already revised their methodology once after this question came out. I think they might revise their methodology again. The reason is that they're running out of long horizon tasks. They just like are running out of questions that are challenging enough for today's AI systems. That in itself is bonkers, and that's going to make predicting this question difficult because you're like predicting a moving target. Otherwise, like you can like kind of look at the current doubling time of 4.7 months, and you might ask like, is that sustainable? Seems maybe a touch hard to sustain. Seems like it might change with methodologies, and so that kind of made me drag out. Like, I mean, I think you also have to consider that the like long-term doubling rate, like 2022 to now, is 7 months. The current doubling rate is 4.7 months. Actually, it might even be different now. I think it might even be faster. There's been new data since this came out. But like you might suggest like, oh, maybe it will like revert to the mean, so to speak. And so that was my reasoning. But I think since I locked in this prediction, there's been new meter data. There's been a methodology revision. And I think that doubling rates are faster than ever. And like that would suggest I'm like headed toward an incorrect prediction.
How are Meta going to do? Are they going to come up with even longer tasks?
Yeah, they're going to have to come up with even longer tasks, or give up.
Right. I guess everyone really likes this. Maybe. Yeah. I guess it's going to be difficult for them. Do you have any comment on your software optimization or your remote work index?
The software optimization one was just like, so for each of these, I was trying to draw projections, like based on past performance, and I more or less just like predicted what that trend line would suggest. And so that explains the software optimization one. Remote work, I feel like, is a little bit more of a trick. Like if you go to remotelabor.ai, there's this paper and it has a leaderboard, which fascinatingly has just been updated since I last looked at it to now include GPT 5.2 and Opus 4.5. I did not know that. You're seeing me see it for the first time. But I feel like it kind of confirms a little bit what I'm thinking, which is just like a little bit unsure how rapidly this leaderboard will be updated. And then I think progress on this has already been kind of slower than other benchmarks. Yeah, scroll down to that evaluations chart right there.
I struggled for a moment because labor in the UK is spelled with a U.
Yeah, we don't do that in America. We only have the U in the word glamour.
Oh, really? Only glamour?
Only glamour. Yeah.
Well, you learn anything every day. Okay.
Yeah, but you can see, so yeah, like basically from Sonnet 4. You can basically see how things have been progressing over time and then kind of extrapolate the rate of change plotted on a logistic curve, and then allow some time for delay, because it seems like it takes multiple months for them to evaluate a model, and it'll just be like presumably whatever they like. So the forecast is graded as of the end of the year. It's like possible that it might be a model like from a couple months ago that is the best model they've evaluated so far.
Right. Okay. It's not super like kind of doesn't tell you a lot about AI necessarily, but like that it's a good forecasting.
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know. I think there's like some interesting tacit work there. Hopefully, I guess, I don't know, what did we have? We had most things don't happen. Tactless is often too high on things. Really try and understand the question to ensure that you really understand the model of what's going on. Note when the vibes in the model may be different.
Yeah, watch out for tricks.
Yeah. And I guess maybe specifically on these AI questions, it seems important to note, like, understand how the actual process of coming up with the number comes from.
Yeah, be bullish on AI progress.
The revenue and on these, like, there is a delay on one of them, and the other, I guess both of them basically have delays built into the reporting process.
Yeah, I would put delays under the watch out for tricks category.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Peter, thank you so much for your time.
No problem. Thanks for having me. It was great to be here.
I guess it's sort of, I think you joked, this is the mind of the forecaster or something at one point, but I think it is important to note that, like, this is what good forecasting looks like. It's just applying this stuff very carefully every single time and actually never, making few errors or something. I think maybe my sense of you, Peter, is that you're quite rigorous sort of the whole time and in many discussions. And that, if you're focused on this, it might seem, this seems like all pretty clear kind of stuff. But the question is just whether you can read the thing every time, notice the tricks every time.
Yeah, and I
base rates every time.
And I should be clear, I don't think I actually maintain 100% every single question, right? Like, I think if you rewind a bit, I think I mentioned completely misreading the unemployment question and flipping it in my head wrong. And like, I guess I already got first place, so I'm not going to complain, but I could have gotten like even more first place if I had not misread that question.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time, Peter.
No problem. Thanks for having me on.
I'll see you on the group chats.
See you later. Bye.